Ground Zero, New York. Here's a live picture of what's left of the World Trade Center after terrorists flew two jetliners into the Twin Towers. Well, imagine what it was like on September 11th at the nearest emergency room.
Tonight we get an idea of the terror and the trauma of the injured patients there. Medical reporter Christy Myers went to New York to meet a Houston surgeon who was there on that day and is still working in that hospital. She has tonight's Eyewitness News Extra.
When the World Trade Center collapsed, hospitals around New York braced for what they expected to be mass casualties. It didn't happen, except for one small hospital that few people outside New York have even heard of. Within moments, it received hundreds of people with horrific injuries. And in the emergency room, a Houston surgeon was working to save them. It was an eerie motorcycle ride across Manhattan for Dr. Sean Boutros. The World Trade Towers were on fire, but still standing. Police were closing off the area.
They stopped me. I said, I'm going to New York Downtown Hospital, and they would wave me through. Have you had any problems with your back before?
Boutros, who is a plastic surgery resident at NYU, is from Houston. He was needed in the emergency room. NYU Downtown Hospital is 3 blocks from Ground Zero. Boutros has seen trauma before at Ben Taub. His father and uncle are doctors here. He went to Baylor College of Medicine, Second Baptist High School. But on September 11th, he found himself in the middle of the busiest emergency room in the country.
These injuries are really, really bad injuries.
They don't deserve it. They don't deserve it. The injury was so massive that you look at one person and you said, you know, who could do this?
He operated on an officer whose pelvis was crushed. 6 months later, that man walked out of the hospital. But the victories are few.
The 2 towers were right there.
Sunlight now filters into hospital windows that used to be shaded by the World Trade Center. NYU Downtown is a small hospital, not a trauma center.
It was incredibly hectic and crazy, and these rooms here were filled with people just working, just nonstop.
Nurses stitched injuries by pin lights. The hospital was running on generators. Power, phones, water out. Boutros treated those he could in the ER, transferred others out. They remember those who didn't survive.
And you're just so sorry for all the people that were there that were not able to get home.
The injuries often so horrific, people burned by showering jet fuel.
I still imagine their faces, how they came in. It's horrible. I still cry.
Others came in choking on the dust.
We felt so isolated here. We were so cut off from the rest of the world that you got a bunker mentality that we're the only ones left alive on the planet.
Dr. Antonio Daher headed the ER that morning. How the ER handled 350 critical patients in 2 hours will rewrite textbooks.
The federal agencies want to bring in their docs and everybody wants to flood in their people, but just trust the people on the scene.
At Ground Zero today, Boutros remembers that night of the 11th when he and others were called there by rescuers, hoping to find someone alive that surgeons could free.
We're waiting for people to come out. We're waiting for people to get pulled out, and it wasn't happening. You felt very helpless.
Ready to help, no one to help. A head-spinning change from the ER frenzy of the morning.
I did what I needed to have done then. I would do it again, but I hope to God I never have to do it ever again in the rest of my life.
Lessons learned from Ground Zero are already changing emergency medicine and helping hospitals around the country prepare for a crisis like this that we all hope never happens again. Reporting from New York, Christy Myers, 13 Eyewitness News.
You've probably never heard of New York Downtown Hospital, yet the small hospital handled the worst of the casualties on 9/11.
Working in the emergency room that day, a young surgeon from Houston. Medical reporter Christy Myers joining us now with his story in tonight's Eyewitness News Extra. Christy?
When Dr. Sean Boutros of Houston was told to get to New York Downtown Hospital, police were already blocking off the area. So he grabbed his motorcycle and managed to make it through 4 police checkpoints. When he finally arrived at the ER, he found himself in the center of the nation's biggest medical emergency.
It was absolutely crazy.
Dr. Sean Boutros from Houston was working in the emergency room 3 blocks away.
we don't know what's coming in the door next. It's like a war situation.
NYU Downtown Hospital is a small hospital, not a trauma center. But on 9/11, the doctors and nurses here were asked to salvage life from so much death.
Wasn't your typical wounds, cuts and bruises. It was large parts of flesh and muscles like hanging off of their shoulders.
At the hospital, some weren't even sure what happened. People were running by, screaming, "Bomb, bomb."
We just thought New York City is being bombed. This is it. It's the end of the world. We thought that the hospital is going to vanish too.
Then they saw the white cloud rolling toward the hospital, and some thought chemical attack.
We had to make a decision in that moment because we didn't know what this white cloud was. Do we open the doors or do we lock down? And people were really choking and looking at us, and and so the decision was made right then, and I said, we're opening the doors.
400 people came into the lobby. The dust covered the hospital. They covered the vents, treated hundreds more for asthma, found children separated from their parents, suffered from the dust and debris along with their patients.
You'd feel like you had ants crawling on your skin.
It's like we were in the middle of a nuclear holocaust and we were in a little island of survivors.
That morning, ambulances were pulling in 3 at a time. There were wall-to-wall stretchers outside this area, and patients were coming in every door of the hospital.
NYU Downtown treated at least 350 people in the emergency room, hundreds more in the cafeteria and the lobby.
And then it was nothing. Then it was literally nothing.
What we didn't realize that at that point was when the buildings collapsed that there would be a sudden end to this.
Everyone was feeling very, very impotent, very powerless.
Boutros, a surgeon, worked on those with the most horrific injuries. Crushed bodies, burns, limbs nearly severed. Many died.
What haunts you about working here that day?
And you're left with the fact that a lot of your efforts, were in the end futile in the fact that the patients didn't make it. But I don't look at it that way.
Boutros says simply, on this day, this ER was where he was meant to be.
September 11th, I was supposed to be down here doing everything I could to try to help some people. That's what I was supposed to be doing September 11th.
Next week, the hospital's CEO is scheduled to testify before Congress. NYU's doctors are being asked to speak around the country to talk about what worked and how they handled the unexpected. Tonight at 10, a look at how this experience changed Sean Boutros. Reporting live, Christy Myers, 13 Eyewitness News.
An incredible story, Christy. Thank you. Well, it looks like